Thank you so much. Oh, you made it, man. We appreciate it.
No doubt.
Look, we're not gonna waste no time. We're gonna get right into it.
Sure.
Cool. So I seen you on the podcast. I'm not sure if it was Matt Barnes and Stack 5. Right. And you were saying how you got back on First Take.
Right.
With Skip and everybody. Yeah. Or Skip on how y'all started on First Take.
Yeah.
It was a quick answer. Skip was upset and did about an hour on his podcast, a rant. I wouldn't say a rant, whatever his point of view was.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be upset about it. So you never responded. You're always on record saying you're never going to disrespect Skip, which is cool. But I'd like to know, what were the blurred lines between your story and his story?
Well, what happened is he thought that I was saying, and he apologized to me for it in fairness to him. He thought that I was saying his show before I arrived was failing and he desperately needed me, so he begged me to come on. That is not what I said. Gotcha. What I said was he came to me and said, I have taken this as far as I can take it. Right. I'm doing fine, but to take this to another level, I need somebody sitting across from me that I can trust. And you're the only one that I can trust that's going to bring it every day, that's got the focus and tenacity and everything else that I have, that I can trust will help me take that to the next level. Right. And so when I reminded him that that was what I said, he fessed up and acknowledged that there were people in his ear that was interpreting it differently and it got to him and it hurt him a lot. And so he overreacted. And I said, cool. And I think that, ultimately at that particular moment in time, listen, First Take has been incredibly successful without him, but it was also successful with him. And the one thing that Skip at the time and I always had a desire to was to work together again. And when that couldn't happen, I think that was something that obviously disappointed him. And it disappointed me too, because I wanted him back with me at ESPN at the time. He wanted to be back with me, but it was something that we couldn't make materialize because a lot of people don't realize that when you're in this business, there's so much that goes into it. Like, for example, you got a contract. Well, you got a negotiating window where you can talk to somebody else and you got to operate in good faith, which means you can't negotiate with anybody else at the same time. You can't have competition, right? Then not only that, let's say, for example, you can't reach an agreement and you decide that you want to depart. Well, sometimes when you want to depart, you got to sit out for a certain period of time, which could ultimately compromise your success. If you recall, when Skip Bayless left First Take at ESPN, he departed in June of 2016. You never saw his face again until that September because his contract with ESPN didn't expire until then, and he wasn't allowed to work for anybody else until that period of time. And a lot of times in this industry, when you disappear, out of sight, out of mind, and people are very, very hesitant to let that happen, which means that's why it doesn't happen too often. And that's what was going on. And so taking all of that into consideration, that was just something that he didn't want to do and he couldn't afford to do in his mind. And I understood that.
Gotcha. Because when I seen it, I was like, this is kind of going far. You gave like a 3-minute answer and he went like to the whole hour.
I was pissed.
Yeah,
I flew out to LA face to face. I went right there. I went to LA. That wasn't the only reason.
Did you go to his house or the office?
Yes, his house. I was going to LA on business anyway, but I moved my flight up, and I went out there because I'm like, well, wait a minute, you my man. I've never disrespected you. I've never done anything like that. Right. For you to go, and that was my first question to him. I said, I literally want to know what would make you take a 60-second remark and make it into a 45-minute.
Even though it was an hour and 2 minutes. Maybe you're right. He went from the time
it was ridiculous.
Stephen A. I'm like, he was really upset. And I thought it was a little bit of jealousy, my personal opinion, Cam's personal opinion, because where you took First Take to where it was before. I'm not into the ratings and everything, but it's not hard to see.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've been number one for 11 and a half years. We started out number one with me and Skip for 4. We've been number one the last 7.5 since he's been gone. So it is what it is. But that doesn't take away anything from the fact that I would not have been on First Take if it were not for him. Yeah. And that's why it doesn't matter what's going on or whatever. Me confronting you man to man is entirely different than what I'm going to say in front of the cameras. I will defend myself in front of anybody. Yeah. But in terms of me going on the attack, No, I'm very personal with shit like that. I will roll right up on you.
Same thing like you said with Allen Iverson. You have to go to Atlanta to talk to Allen Iverson.
That was wild too. That was wild because I mean, listen, I'm a reporter and I got a job to do. And listen, we all from the streets. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times the people think it's about getting your whose ass can you whip. No, it's not. It's about what you willing to take an ass whipping for. Where do you stand on your principles?
That one. Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That one.
And so it's not a matter of whether you can beat somebody, whether you can fight somebody or whatever. It's about the fact you ain't backing down when you know you're right. Yeah. And in the case of Allen Iverson, that was many years ago, knowing the love that I have for this man. That's my little brother. He was hurt over what I wrote. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't realizing I really didn't say anything. Yeah. I was really saying you got to stop partying and you got to focus on what you got to do. That's all I really said. I gave no details, but other cats got in his ear. We hadn't spoken because he departed from the 60s. He was gone for 8 months. And then I'm in Atlanta one day and they were like, yo, man, you know, I was on my way to Atlanta rather. They were like, yo, man, you know, you got to stay out of that city. Hey, and you know,
that's how they talk to me.
And he looking for you, and if him and the crew find you, and I like what? Yeah. So
that
I moved up that flight. Yeah. I moved up that flight, and I rolled to Atlanta looking for him, and we found each other, and I will tell you that was a total change because when I saw him and I spoke to him, I never felt so bad in my career. Yeah. What happened is he looked me dead in the face. He said, I don't give a shit about the article, man. It's that it was your name. It was you. He said, that's what hurt me. I don't care what anybody says.
Somebody
true
else
or false or whatever.
said that story.
He said it was because it was you. And I said, I feel you. Yeah. But what did I say? Read the article. I really didn't say anything. But I understood at that moment in time how much love he had for me. And how that I was capable of hurting him. And I didn't know that. And so when it was like that, I just said to myself, you know something? I understand it's a rare moment in this industry, but our relationship is on a different level. And so he's the kind of person that I'm the kind, for him, I'm one of the few people on the planet that can pull him aside and tell him anything, talk to him about anything because of the relationship, the brotherhood that we got. He's like a little brother to me. So because of that, it's like, all right, the hell with all of this journalism stuff or whatever. It's on another level with me and him. And from this day forward, anything that I say is going to be to him. Yeah. Right. I got nothing to say about him unless it's to him. Yeah. And so from that point forward, you know, he retired thereafter. We talk at least 2-3 times a month. He's always calling me and I'm always calling him, checking up